Out of all the movies that I've encountered, this was the most human. Okay, so we can all agree that Star Trek the Motion Picture is a bust. Let's just move on with our lives, because I promised you that better Star Trek movies were on their way, and I'm here to deliver on that promise with Star Trek The Wrath of Khan. Oh yeah. Now, for those of you who don't know who Khan is, or kind of where he originated from, I'll give you a quick little, side story of just who he was, very quickly. He debuted on the original series episode Space Seed. He's basically a genocidal maniac who's in charge of more genocidal maniacs, and he tries to take over the Enterprise, kill Kirk, and bang, we got a villain. Now, the big thing that happens with him is Kirk doesn't kill him, but instead, kind of maroons him on a planet and says, basically, hey, this planet's yours, you can do whatever you want with it, I'll be back later to check up on you. But Kirk's too busy, nailing Carol Marcus and boning green chicks, and he, super forgets about Khan, and that pisses Khan off because some shit happens, and that's where we get the movie, The Wrath of Khan. Let's get to it. Now, Star Trek The Wrath of Khan is the movie that starts feeling like a Star Trek movie. You start getting, really good sounds in there. You start getting, new uniforms. Look at these things. These uniforms look awesome. They're way better than the uniforms we got in the motion picture. They're more naval, they're more proper. They look like what a Starfleet officer would wear, especially on the bridge of the Enterprise. Speaking of which, we get a totally new bridge of the Enterprise that looks awesome. There's a lot more color, a lot more life and soul to this movie. And that's why The Wrath of Khan is arguably the best Star Trek movie ever. It's got a great villain. It's got great sound, it's got a great look, it's really, really fun, and it has everything that you want in a Star Trek movie. Now, let's talk about story in The Wrath of Khan real quick. There's kind of three sub-stories that, loop into one big overall story. First of all being, Dr. Carol Marcus, who we'll get to in just a little bit, has created this thing called the Genesis device, which is basically this, torpedo type thing that you shoot at a dead planet, and boom-bam, it makes a whole new planet. A whole new world! Now, this can be used kind of as a weapon, because if you shoot it at a planet that has life on it, it has to kill everything to then create kind of new life. So you can see where the conflict is coming with that. Second kind of main story, and I would say this is the main overall story of this movie, is Khan. So basically what happens is Chekhov is on a new ship, the Reliant. They don't really tell you why, he's just there, plot, whatever. And they're looking for a planet to use the Genesis device on. And he thinks he found one. He thinks he kind of, oh dude, I found a planet that's super dead. But then he gets a blip and he's like, uh-oh, there might be something down on that planet and maybe we should go check out what it is. What could it possibly be? It's Khan. Khan's on the planet. It's Khan. Okay, it's Khan! So Chekhov and this, weak piece of shit captain, he's such a coward and I hate him. They go down to the planet to investigate, and Chekhov realizes that, oh no, this is where Khan is, because he sees the ship, the Botany Bay. And he's like, oh, dude, we gotta super get out of here. And he turns around and there's everybody from Mad Max is standing there looking at him, and he's like, oh, we're in it now. Great, this isn't good. This isn't gonna end well. So Khan basically takes these two captive and puts this weird slug thing in his ear and basically makes them drones in a sense. And now Khan basically has Starfleet officers at his disposal as well as a Starfleet ship. So he sends Carol Marcus a message basically saying Starfleet wants the Genesis device and we're coming to get it as per orders of James T. Kirk. And Carol's all like, well, I haven't heard from Kirk since last time we met. He hasn't called me in 18 years, whatever. Oh, typical Kirk. Typical. So, needless to say, she calls Kirk and is like, WTF, bro? And he's all like, I don't know what you're talking about. So, I'm going to get the Enterprise and this new recruit kind of team that he's training, and they zip off for the starbase to see just what's going on. So Kirk gets to the starbase and there's Khan waiting for him, and he starts shooting the Enterprise with the Reliant, and Kirk's like, what's going on? We're all Starfleet. No, the shit's bad. No. And then Khan pops up on the screen and he's all like, grr, and he's big fucking chest is popping out and he's really menacing looking. And Kirk's kind of like, hey, Khan, yeah. How you doing? How you doing, bro? And Khan's all pissed off because you left us on a planet that basically got destroyed due to some, like, atmospheric shift in the system. So Khan's basically like, I'm gonna kill you and I'm gonna ruin everything for you. Ha ha ha, I'm a villain. And Khan's a really good villain in this movie. He's strong, he's intimidating, he's everything that this movie needs. He's like the perfect opposite of Kirk. He's all about like dictatorship and power, where Kirk's more about like diplomacy and working together. And it's a really good kind of yin and yang situation that we got going on in this movie. Now, it should be noted that Kirk and Khan are never like in the same room with one another, like ever. They're on the screens, like talking to each other, but it's weird that like mortal enemies are never actually like face to face with one another. It's kind of weird how that turned out in this movie, but you can actually see and feel the hatred between these two characters. So Khan cripples the Enterprise, and then Kirk sends this message over to the Reliant, and it basically forces the Reliant shield to go down, and he shoots the Reliant, and both ships are now crippled. Oh no, what are we gonna do? So Kirk takes his opportunity, he goes to the space station, he's just trying to find out what's going on, and he finds Carol and everything like that, and Khan thinks he's got him like trapped. Oh yeah, I'm gonna mess you up now, I'm gonna leave you just as you left me. Grr. And Kirk's all like ticked off about it, and he finds out that Chekhov and the other captain, whatever his name is, are under the control of Khan this entire time, and then the one captain like shoots himself, and he's like, pfft, and Chekhov just goes, ah, and falls down, and then the slug comes out, and Chekhov's fine. And this is where we get that really famous scene of, you know, Khan and Kirk and that back and forth of Khan going, I have hurt you, and I'm going to keep on hurting you. And Kirk's all, Khan! Khan! It's a really powerful scene. It's really good stuff, and it establishes that these two guys, like, hate each other. Genuinely hate each other. But this entire time, Kirk's just kind of been playing Khan. He has like a secret coded message with Spock where like days or hours and weeks or minutes and all this sort of stuff, and he's fooling Khan. Kirk's using his intelligence and his his knowledge and experience to outsmart Khan, and it's really smart. It shows that really cunning side of Kirk again, and it's really, really good stuff. So Kirk beams back to the Enterprise. The Enterprise has sort of patched itself up. And, Khan's ship is now all better, and he's got the Genesis device now, but Kirk's, like, makes a break for a nebula, and Khan starts following him. Even though Khan's people are sitting there going, don't, we have the Genesis device, we have a ship, we got off the planet, we won, you don't have to fight Kirk anymore. And Khan's all like, no, stupid, revenge, grr, he made me look stupid on an episode of the show and want to get my revenge. So this for me is probably the best part of the movie. This is where we get a really, really satisfying ship battle inside a nebula, because both sensors inside of the nebula are pretty much useless. So it's basically just blind shooting, trying to find each other. So you see how Kirk like outsmarts Khan. He like flies up and shoots him a bunch and totally cripples the ship, and it's a really satisfying ship battle for the time. The sounds are good, the effects are good, the models look awesome. So now Khan's ship is basically rendered completely useless, and he's floating around, but he's got the Genesis device. But the Enterprise has taken so much damage that it can't warp away. So what does Khan do? He turns on the Genesis device, knowing that it's going to create this huge explosion that's going to destroy both the Reliant and the Enterprise. How devious. But miraculously, the Enterprise manages to achieve warp. How does it do this? Well, you're about to find out. This is one of the best moments in this movie. It's when Spock sacrifices himself by fixing the warp core, essentially. He goes in knowing that the radiation will kill him, and he fixes it, and that's how they're able to achieve warp. So Spock sacrifices himself in the most human way he knows how, by saving the entire crew. And that's where you get a lot of really good quotes in this movie. You know, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. It's really powerful stuff, and you see the friendship and the loving bond between Kirk and Spock and the entire crew at this moment. Now, the third, and I would say not the most important aspect of this movie, but it is here, is Kirk kind of dealing with his age. He's getting older, he's no spring chicken anymore, and this movie deals a lot with that. But throughout this entire movie, dealing with Khan and dealing with Carol and his son, which we'll get to in a minute, it shows him and proves to him that he's still got it, that he is still the same great Captain Kirk as he always was. And one of the last things that he says in this movie, McCoy asks him, how do you feel, Jim? And he responds, young. So we have all these things coming together. There's no way that the next movie can be bad. Right? There's no way that the next one can be bad. Now, let's talk characters real quick. Of course, we have, the same crew back in action in this movie. We've got Kirk, Spock, everything like that. All those characters, you know who they are. I know who they are. We're not going to spend any time on them. So let's talk about kind of the new characters in this movie. So let's start with Khan. Khan is by far the most charismatic character in this movie. He steals every single scene that he's in. He's so devious and cunning and intimidating, and it makes him a really good villain. My only problem is, why did you have to kill him? You didn't have to kill this guy. I never understand why movies do that. They have like a really good villain, and then they like kill him after one movie. Khan could have been the Darth Vader of this Star Trek series. He's that good. We also get Dr. Carol Marcus, who's like, I don't know, Kirk's girlfriend, wife, ex-wife, he's a girl that Kirk once had sex with, is basically what it boils down to. Now, her as a character, she's a very strong character. She's very strong-willed, she's very empathetic, she's very scientific, she's a very smart character, which again is kind of a funny thing because Kirk isn't the most scientific guy in the world, and again, she plays that good yin to his yang. She's a good fit for his character, and they blend really, really well together. Now we get David, Kirk's son. Remember that Kirk has a kid? Yeah. Father of the Year over here. David he's a character. He is in this movie. He's in it. David's character, he's kind of a mix of Carol and Kirk. He's got the science aspect of Carol, and he's got kind of that rogue nature of Kirk kind of blended into one. But he's not a great character. He's kind of lame, to be perfectly honest. He's just a little whiny and a little bratty, and he's always like complaining, and he's got daddy issues. It's basically what it boils down to. He's just like, oh, my dad he missed my 60th birthday. And last but not least, we get Saavik, who's one of the stronger characters in this movie. It's Kirstie Alley before she ate Norm from Cheers. Fellow Vulcan to Spock, she plays this really interesting Vulcan, actually. She's kind of intrigued by humanity and more by Kirk. She doesn't like get him. She's always like trying to size him up and giving him like information and offering suggestions that Kirk just kind of like pushes aside, even though she's super right. Like, she's super right. If Kirk just listened to her, there would be no problem. They would have beat Khan in like a second. But, that's just the way that Kirk rolls. He does his own thing. But she's a very good character. And especially at the end of this movie where Spock dies at the funeral, she's crying. She has that tear going down her cheek, which is like unheard of for a Vulcan. So you get some conflict in her, and she's a really strong character and used really well throughout this entire movie. Now, music and sound design. This movie's got a very good theme. Even though it does get overshadowed by like the motion picture, which has a way better theme. Although the effects and sound design in The Wrath of Khan, way better. The phasers sound better, the explosions sound better. When they zip to warp, it sounds way better. So everything like is upped in this movie, which is great because the motion picture really fell flat. So overall, The Wrath of Khan is arguably the best Star Trek movie to date. It's quotable, it's got great action in it, great characters in it, the music is great, the sound design is great, the costumes feel like what they should for a Star Trek movie. Everything feels great in this movie. So if you haven't seen it, I strongly suggest you go out and check The Wrath of Khan because it is totally worth it. Even if you're not a Star Trek fan, it's just a great movie. My overall rating for The Wrath of Khan is a very solid 9 out of Transwarp. 10. That's never going to get old. The only thing that would maybe boost it up to a 9, 5, or even a 10 is maybe a little bit better pacing. There are some parts to this movie that feel like they drag on a little bit too long. And again, I would have liked to have seen Khan as a reprising villain throughout this entire series. But it's very, very small, like nitpicky things with this movie because, again, it's a very strong, solid movie. Not just a Star Trek movie, just a movie on its own. So, if you've seen The Wrath of Khan, please leave me a comment below. Let me know what you thought of that movie. Let me know what you think of this review. And let me know what you would change or keep, or what you liked or what you didn't like about The Wrath of Khan. And as always, thank you so much for watching this review. It really means a lot to me. And if you haven't done it yet, please hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and always feel free to leave me a comment. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all on the very next episode of Star Trekkin' The Cinematic Frontier. And Tender Gaming. And the Co-ops Play. And Tender Guests. Just all the stuff that we're doing on this show. Yeah. I'll see you then. Oh, you better watch out, Khan. Kirk's coming to beat the shit out of you.